and welcome back to the Body for Minds podcast. If you listened to the last episode, I hope the following section at the end stuck with you. It was because you're no longer equating performance with identity. So today, I want to explore performance and identity more deeply, because these are words that we use all the time without really thinking about what they actually mean. Let's start by looking at performance. It's everywhere, right? At work, performance reviews, performance metrics, in sports, peak performance, high performance, and in more subtle ways, how we show up, how we're perceived, how we manage everything. I've been thinking about this word a lot recently because if you look at where it comes from, performance originally just means to carry something through, to bring something into form. An actor performs a role, an athlete performs a movement or a sequence of movements. You perform a task at work or at home. In all these cases, you're shaping something so it can be expressed. You're executing it. And that in itself isn't anything particularly complex at all, right? Where it starts to get interesting and maybe a bit uncomfortable is when performance is no longer something you do, but something you're constantly inside of, something you are living. Because if you look at your life for a moment, you're performing a lot of the time. Or as others would phrase it, you get stuff done. You execute ruthlessly. At work and at home, switching between the sharp, analytical professional to the loving and caring mother and back all the time. And here you might say, well, but isn't that normal? Isn't that just the different roles that you play, that everyone is playing? What makes this different for me as a high-achieving, ambitious mom? Well, because as a mom, you are constantly reading the room, not only at home, but also at work, to recalibrate how you show up, how you perform based on what others need. In conversations, in meetings, during escalating tensions between siblings or co-workers, you're adjusting, softening, explaining, holding things together. Add to this that structurally, there's very little support. You're always holding a lot of responsibility at work and at home, a constantly growing list of to-dos. So obviously, you're getting on with things because that's what you do. What else can you do? And quite frankly, you are already feeling behind, oftentimes. So you're definitely not going to cut yourself slack. And on top of all that, you always tread the very fine line of just how much of your personal life you reveal at work, because somehow motherhood changed the stakes here too. You can't reveal too much, not too little, just the right amount, even though no one has ever really told you what right actually means. Because if you reveal too much, you are unprofessional. If you reveal too little, you are considered a bad mom. So it's performance touching on identity, because you are only allowed to bring so much of yourself into the room. Otherwise, you confirm what everyone already knew, which is that you are not ambitious anymore and that your true focus is now on your family. So you have this constant adjustment to external feedback at work and at home. Tone, energy, timing, what you say, what you don't say. Trying to get it just right. And because it is such a balancing act, which, by the way, also costs a lot of energy, right? You cannot access the full up level that you got through motherhood. Daring to tap into the skills that you honed through motherhood or through becoming a mom would risk bringing too much of your maternal persona into the work persona, risking to tip into the balancing act that I just described before. And here we are touching on another kind of performance, which is that of an actor, a person who embodies somebody else to tell a story. And at this point, performance isn't just something you do in certain situations. It can start to feel like something you are in across multiple areas of your life. And those areas don't always fit together neatly, or often need to be kept separate even. Because you're expected to be fully present at home, while also being fully committed at work, while also navigating other people's expectations, of course, for both roles. So yes, everyone shifts between roles, of course. But as a high-achieving, ambitious mother, you play at least 2 roles that compete for top billing, 2 films shot in parallel, and you're striving to get the Oscar for both, so to speak. And this is where I want to dig deeper into the word identity. Identity at its root means something quite simple: continuity, a sense of sameness over time. Not sameness in what you do, but a sense that you are still you, even as things change. And if you pause for a moment and feel into that, there's a very honest question underneath it. How do you experience that kind of continuity when you're constantly adjusting how you show up or as who you show up? When you move between roles, between performing all day long, when expectations shift depending on where you are, when your body, your work, your relationships all seem to ask for something very different from you, and where it's risky to tap into overlapping qualities professionally. And this is where many women start to notice something, often rather quietly. Not necessarily a dramatic identity crisis, but more a subtle sense of distance. You're functioning, you're capable, you're doing what needs to be done. But at the same time, there's a feeling of being slightly outside of it all, like a lot of your attention is directed outward, scanning, responding, adjusting. And what often gets missed is that this doesn't happen because you're doing something wrong. It happens because there is very little space to ever step out of the roles, the performance you're in. If you think about an actor, they step into a role, but they also step out of it. If you think about an athlete, they perform, but recovery is part of the process. There's a rhythm, effort and return. But in your day-to-day life, that rhythm can disappear because even when one role ends, another one begins. And let's be honest, none of the roles ever end. It's a constant back and forth and across and over, back again and around once more. And over time, something subtle shifts. Your body becomes something you move through the day with rather than something you're really in contact with. You push through tiredness. You eat when it fits. You push through tiredness. You eat when it fits. You ignore tension because something else needs attention first. Not because you don't care, but because there's always something or someone that needs you. And in that way, it's not different from what we see in high-level athletes, where the body becomes something to train and shape for output. And at the same time, connection to the body can get quieter because the focus is on what it can do, not on what it's saying. But let's remember that athletes have recovery times. They have got a host of professional support to help them recover faster or better. So the issue isn't performance itself. Performance is something we all do all the time in one way or another. It can be deeply expressive. It's part of how you contribute and show up in the world. The issue is when there's no clear place where you come back to yourself. And without that return, it can start to feel like everything is shifting, without anything feeling steady underneath it. Not because you don't have a core, but because you don't have much access to it in the middle of everything. And this is where the body becomes important, not as something to fix or to shape, but as a place that is part of all your roles, of all the hats you wear, a place that reacts the same way regardless of which role you're in a specific moment, and that holds tension and joy, anger and excitement without discriminating where you are. Your nervous system stays the same, and the overload that adds up in one role invariably affects the other role too. So tuning in to your body is where you begin to gain access to all of that. And this isn't about suddenly listening perfectly to your body. It's about creating small moments where you're not adjusting or scanning externally, where you're not anticipating, where you're not trying to get it right, even if it's just for a few moments each day. Then the question to take with you today isn't how do I stop performing, but something much simpler. Where in my day is there even a small moment where I am not adjusting myself to something outside of me? And what do I notice there? Because you don't need to stop performing. You need to anchor your performance back in your identity. So it's not only driven by what's expected of you. And that kind of performance will bring a completely different energy than the one that is based on internalized external pressure. That anchor that carries your full story, the complete version of you across roles, is your body, if you begin to notice it again. I'll leave you with that for today, and I'll see you in the next episode. More you, less noise. Until then.